Hey, good morning. I'm Paige Browning. It's Thursday. This is Seattle Now. It's not easy being a Seattle sports fan, and yet the city is full of passionate fans ready to get hurt again. One of those fans is ESPN's Mina. Mina's here to talk about what makes Seattle sports and its fans so special. But first, let's get you caught up. Seattle police want to add 3 new surveillance cameras around the city on Capitol Hill, the Stadium District, and near Garfield High School. Last fall, the council approved a pilot program to install surveillance cameras in other parts of the city, including on 3rd Avenue downtown. Seattle police say those cameras have led to arrests involving several violent crimes. Groups like the ACLU of Washington have been opposed to the cameras from the start. The council's Public Safety Committee will consider expansion this morning at 9:30. Washington Senator Patty Murray has introduced a bill that would restore federal funding for Planned Parenthood. Earlier this month, President Trump signed a massive spending bill that prevents Planned Parenthood clinics from getting reimbursements from Medicaid. Murray's proposal would strip that provision of the spending bill and restore the funding. Meanwhile, on Monday, a federal judge blocked Trump's effort to withhold that Medicaid funding. The Trump administration is fighting that ruling through an appeals process. And the Seattle Seahawks are keeping their head honcho around for the next 5 years. The Seattle Times reports that general manager and president of football operations, John Schneider, is expected to sign a contract extension to stay with the team until 2030. He ascended to the role following Pete Carroll's departure last January. The Seahawks have missed the playoffs each of the last 2 years. They kick off the new season September 7th. Check back for more headlines on tonight's episode of Seattle Now. ESPN analyst Mina isn't from Seattle, but she adopted its teams. It started as a way to connect with her dad.
I'm a Seattle sports fan because my dad, who was in the Air Force and we moved around a lot as a kid, instilled Seattle sports fandom into me and my brother. And not just Seahawks, Mariners, Sonics when they were there, Washington football. I grew up always rooting for those teams. And then in the summers, we would come back and go to Mariners games at the Kingdom and some Seahawks games too during the season when we got a chance. So it really came from him.
And it turned into a bit of an obsession, and now she's made a career out of it. She's one of the best football analysts out there, and she's in town this week to tape an episode of her podcast at Numos, joined by Seahawks safety Julian Love. I wanted to talk to her about what makes Seattle sports culture unique and what she's excited about right now. Hey, Mina, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It is always fun to see Seahawks fans in person.
Oh, yeah, you'll definitely see some blue jerseys, I'm sure. So you're coming to host your podcast at Numos, and this show sold out in like 5 minutes. We know this because one of our producers might have been trying to get tickets. What's it like to feel love from people in Seattle as you come to visit?
Well, I should add, I also have the great Julian Love as a guest, who is the Seahawks starting safety, who's a really unbelievable player. So I have to think that played a role in that. But it's wonderful. I mean, honestly, Seahawks fans are some of my favorite football fans, not just because obviously we have the shared interests, but I just really enjoy hearing from them, even when they don't agree with me. I think they are this perfect blend of, it's not a small market, but feeling like a small market. They're intelligent. They really know the game really well. And yeah, I really enjoy hearing from them. And I really love seeing them in person. They're doing these live shows. It's it's always a great experience. It's always been, I think more than ever though, I really enjoy it because it's so hard to have normal interactions with fans and listeners on the internet these days. You kind of have to touch grass to meet your listeners. And then when you do, you remember they're absolutely delightful. I did this, a few years ago. I think it was over 5 or 6, maybe 5 years ago in Seattle. It was so great to see the listeners in real life then. So I'm looking forward to it this time.
So ESPN is the biggest place in the world to cover sports. Its critics say, though, that the network lends a lot of coverage to the big markets, New York, LA. You rep Seattle teams. What do you think makes Seattle a unique sports city to cover?
I think that the passion of the baseball and football fan bases in particular, and I'll have to apologize, I'm not super tapped into the WNBA fan base, but I've heard that they're quite passionate as well with the Storm.
I'm tapped in enough, so we're covered on this show.
And I know hockey's new there, but from my vantage, the Seahawks and Mariners fans, even though they're not quote unquote huge market teams and they're not nationally covered like the Cowboys and the Jets and whatnot, I think the passion of the fans is just I would put up there with any fan base in the NFL. And it's a passion in the case of the Mariners that's obviously persisted despite adversity for decades.
Oh,
right?
What do you mean?
So, you can root for a good team and be a great fan, but I think the fan bases that are near and dearest to my heart tend to be ones like that stick with their teams despite years of it just makes, the triumphs that much sweeter. When the Mariners finally ended the playoff drought with Cal Raleigh, I will cherish that memory, watching that at home forever. I just get chills just thinking about it. And it wouldn't be nearly as meaningful, if not for all of the failure leading up to that. So, and then we have just some great sports heroes too. I mean, the thing about the Mariners in particular, even though they haven't been successful, some of the best baseball, the most lovable and best baseball players of all time. We've been seeing Ichiro get celebrated with the Hall of Fame, and it's just so fun to go back and revisit what he meant to the city. And there's some guys on the roster right now who you feel the same way about.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you're a fan. Apparently, you've got a Seahawks Super Bowl tattoo. This is what my producer says. There it is. How does rooting for these teams, who don't always win and are not the big nationally talked about teams, how does it shape your perspective as a sports journalist and as a fan?
I think as an NFL analyst, which is, my primary job, it drives home the importance for me of paying attention to every team in the NFL, even if, yes, we spend a disproportionate amount of time talking about a few teams. When I get the opportunity to talk about, and again, the Seahawks are not anywhere close to the bottom of markets, but, if talking about the Jaguars or the Chargers or Cardinals, those fans are as passionate as any large market teams, and they deserve television or analysis that respects that. And I really try to make sure I'm cognizant of what's going on across the league, I think, because of that.
And Seattle, for its part, is starting to get its due as a sports city. We hosted MLB All-Star Weekend. You were here for that. We're hosting some of the men's FIFA World Cup matches here next year. What do you think people visiting the city will see about Seattle as a sports environment?
I think just that downtown atmosphere is fantastic. The proximity of everything. I mean, having the football field right next to the baseball field is such a unique arrangement, and it creates it's such a cool environment because of that. I think it's just a really fun fan base that's not toxic compared to maybe some others.
What a compliment. Yeah.
No, I remember after they won the Super Bowl, there was a video that went viral of Seahawks fans celebrating the streets and then waiting to cross the street for the light. I don't know if you remember that, but it was just
so classic.
And look, there's nothing wrong with climbing the poles in Philly or, whatever the heck happens with Raiders tailgates. But I think there's something really sweet about how, just kind of generally nice the fan base is. I say that, and Niners fans are probably like, you think they're nice, really? The stuff they say to us. But by and large, it's a pretty family-friendly environment, in my opinion, across sports in Seattle, and I think that's cool.
I have to read a short quote of something you've said. You've said being a Mariners fan has deadened your sensory receptors from a lifetime of pain. But when you have moments like this weekend, when Ichiro was inducted into the MLB Hall of Fame, what does it mean to you?
Oh, it's like I said, it not only makes the celebratory moments sweeter, but it also gives you, I think, an added sense of pride because Ichiro was ours. Felix was ours. I always think about that. He was just a Mariner for life, and he meant so much to this city despite the fact that the rest of the team failed him, particularly in so many ways. So then when you see those sports figures nationally celebrated, I think you feel a level of pride maybe that is unique. It's kind of like seeing a band get big that you were listening to 10 years ago or something. And so I think that happens a lot with Seattle sports. There's like a proprietary feeling that's pretty special.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that Cal Raleigh walk-off to end the Mariners playoff drought. Do you have another favorite Seattle sports memory? Maybe one that made you say, okay, I'm going to be rooting for this team for life.
Growing up, it has to be the double.
They would love a base hit into the gap, and they could win it with Junior speed to stretch. And the 0-1 pitch on the way to Edgar Martinez. Swung on the line, down the left field line for a base hit. Here comes Joy. Here is Junior to third base. They're going to wave him in. The throw to the plate will be late. The Mariners are going to play for the American League Championship. I don't believe it. It just continues. My, oh my. Edgar Martinez with a double. Ripped down the left field line, and they are going crazy at the Kingdom.
Right, here comes Joey. Here, I mean that I was 10, so it's like a formative. My prefrontal cortex was still forming, and hearing Dave. I mean, like it's funny because the Mariners were really like Ken Griffey Jr. was like a national star, right? And so it's a little unique, a little different from maybe some of the sports stars in Seattle that have come since then because he was just so big. But that was just a mass. Edgar Martinez was also my favorite Mariner growing up.
And the street outside the stadium's named after him now.
And he's just such a great guy. I mean, he's such a just wonderful person and family. And I feel so lucky because so often they say never meet your heroes and sports heroes, and you can go any kind of way, but that went the best possible way, to be honest. And then more recently, the other one would be the tip, the Richard Sherman tip in the 2014 NFC Championship game is probably my favorite football moment of all time.
Kaepernick, end zone, Crabtree, broken up, picked off! This game is over! Knocked in the air, intercepted by Smith, off the hands of Richard Sherman.
That, to me, will probably never be matched just in terms of the thrill of seeing it and then the interview afterwards, and just so emblematic of that era of Seahawks football too.
Okay, just to make sure I had my history right, I had to look up the double once again.
95 ALDS Game 5. Mariners had to not only to beat the horrible villainous Yankees, but also Seattle and the future of baseball in the town was at risk, and it was a very loaded moment and one of the all-time great calls.
I would be remiss if I didn't take a quick temperature check with our premier sports analyst about the Mariners right now. How are you feeling about the M's right now? And then I'll ask how you're feeling about the upcoming Seahawks season.
I think Mariners cautiously optimistic, obviously still in, the wild card race. Looks like it's going to be hard to catch up with the Astros. Curious to see how active they continue to be at the trade deadline. I'm a Mariners fan. I'm loyal through and through, but I've been frustrated like other Mariners fans with maybe the lack of investment, shall we say, in the team. Julio heating up the way he has in recent days has been tremendous, and I think
a good time of year to heat up.
And it's kind of a trend with him. So I think that continuing and Raleigh showing no signs of slowing down bodes well for a strong finish.
Yep. And then Seahawks, how are you feeling about their upcoming season?
Yeah, so we just previewed the NFC West on my podcast. So Seahawks fans, go check that out. To sort of summarize my thoughts, very high on the defense, questions about the offense. Defense, I think, last year in the second half of the season was really exceptional. And I think there's a very strong chance we're looking at a top 5 unit this year. A lot of continuity there as well. Offensively, just major changes. Obviously, quarterback going from Geno Smith to Sam Darnold, but changes throughout, right? DK Metcalf gone, new offensive coordinator. So, we'll see how it all plays out. A little bit more questions about that side of the ball for me.
Who or what is exciting in the Seattle sports scene right now for you? Is there a team you're watching, a player, an event, a shift in the environment? What are you watching that's exciting?
I mean, the Mariners are pretty dang exciting. The Cal Raleigh finish is going to be he really has, I think, broken through nationally, by the way. It's
for
funny,
sure.
Seeing him go from just being like a Seattle secret or something to being on all of our shows and ESPN, and that is really cool. But he's got obviously the chance to make history this year. setting a home runs record for his position and maybe more than that. So yeah, that's going to be one that I'm going to be certainly clued in. I mean, I would be paying attention regardless, but I think that adds extra level of excitement to this Mariners season.
Mina Kimes is an ESPN analyst and Seattle sports superfan. Can I call you that?
You can say that, yeah.
She's got a show at Numos tonight, but only if you got a ticket weeks ago. Mina, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for listening to Seattle Now. Today's episode was produced by Vaughn Jones. It was edited by Caroline Chamberlain Gomez. Our production team also includes Andy Hurst, Brooklyn Jamerson Flowers, Shane Mailing, and Patricia Murphy. Greg Kramer does our theme music. Seattle Now and KUOW Public Radio are members of the NPR network. I'm Paige Browning. See you soon.